I'd show you around my tiny house while gingerbread man's on the roof, fixing up the broken bits of cookies with some super glue. My roof has got a hole, so when it rains it never stops. We could talk to honeybees and munch on everything we see, or gaze upon the flower beds and chat away till 3.
Happy December, friends! Well, it's almost December. We're recording this in November. I have been, and you have been, fighting some flu or cold. We've been quite sick for a while. For this week's video, we want to sit down and share our favorite books from 2023 with you. We're gonna go by month, so starting with January. This year, I've really been honing down on what I like to read. I feel like when I started reading, I read just everything, and now I've been really narrowing it down because there are so many books to read in so little time. Also, we only have one mic, so we are going to be switching it between us as we talk about our books. January. January was such a good month for me because I really dive into fantasy. So I have to give January to a Neil Gaiman book. I finally read Stardust for the first time. I mean, it's Neil Gaiman. It's always good because it's Neil Gaiman, but Stardust to me felt like Princess Bride. It felt like everything cozy that I want in a fantasy, and it made me feel like a kid again when you read a fantasy book. And you're just so immersed in the world, and it's so full of magic and fairies and pirates. What was your top book for January?
My favorite book for January was probably The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Even though I've already read it before, I reread it this year. And I put it on this list because I felt like the second time I read it, I got a lot more out of it, and it was more enjoyable in the slower parts because I understood more of it. So I would definitely recommend, if you have read it, read it a second time, even though it's like a million hours.
What would you say to someone who wants to read it for their first time? Because that's a big book. It's like over 1,000 pages, isn't it?
I would say stick with it because it is a lot, but I feel like the payoff is totally worth it in the end. And then the second book's like even better, and then the third book and the fourth book, it's really good.
For February, my favorite book, this one, oh, it was so good. It was Into the Heartless Wood by Joanna Ruth Meyer. I was still very much on my fantasy kick, and I wanted something that felt like a fairy tale with beautiful writing and a story that felt unique, and I was looking for that, and I found that exactly in this book. The setting of it reminded me of like Ella Enchanted or The Princess Bride, but there's also like these siren trees, like mermaids, but they're trees. If you're looking for a book that feels like a fairy tale for adults, that is very heartwarming, and the setting is beautiful, look no further than this one. Oh, I can't recommend it enough.
So for February, my favorite book was The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I'm not sure if I said his name right. One of the cool things about the book is that the perspective is like him in a tavern telling someone his story, which I think is kind of interesting compared to other high fantasy books. One warning I'll give about this book is that if you do read it, the third book is not out, and we don't know when it's gonna come out, and it's been a long time, so prepare for possible disappointment.
March is so hard because I cannot choose between these two. This, I don't even know. Okay, I could spend time on that in a second. The other one is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. I think I have to give March to this one because just like all the Bridgerton books, I just couldn't put this down. This felt like how reading Twilight felt, or how reading ACOTAR felt. Like the Bridgerton series just is one of those that as soon as I pick it up, I am fully immersed in the world. I am going to balls and going to the modiste to get dresses fit. Like it's just such a fun world to live in, and being someone who already loves like Jane Austen and the Regency period, Victorian period, all of that like historical romance and fiction, I ate this up. And I remember like we were driving to go get groceries. Whenever we were in the car doing anything, I was like, can I listen to my book? Can I listen to my book? So I was listening to it on audio. I just couldn't put it down. So March has to go to this one. But Lost Coast Literary was a very close second.
So for March, the book I chose was The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson.
Another Brandon Sanderson.
Yep, another Brando Sando book. This is the last one in the Mistborn saga. Think magic with 1900s New York, but also like cowboys and trains and horses and that kind of stuff. I cried when I read this book, and that is why it's really high up on my list.
I didn't know that.
And it was so sad, but it was so good at the same time. So it was like happy sad.
Okay.
Yeah,
You can
read
never
it.
go wrong with Brandon Sanderson.
You really can't.
Therapy has been something that has been a big part of my life the past few years. Having someone to sit down and talk with me through my emotions has really helped me learn how to handle them better, and also how to allow myself to really feel them instead of suppressing them. Starting therapy can be hard, especially if you're an introvert like me. It's a big step. But with BetterHelp, they make it so easy. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you unbiased advice. And with BetterHelp, they provide the therapy in a way that works for you. You can have your sessions via phone call or a video call or even text messaging, whatever the most comfortable version of therapy is for you. To get started, you fill out a really simple questionnaire to assess your specific needs and then get matched with a therapist in most cases within 48 hours. After that, you'll be able to schedule therapy sessions at a time that's convenient for you. With BetterHelp, you also have access to 30,000 of their therapists in their network, which is a lot more than are probably available to you locally. And if the therapist that you're matched with just doesn't vibe with you or doesn't feel like it's the right fit, you can easily switch to another therapist at no extra cost. Over 4 million people have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier and happier life. If you think you might benefit from therapy, consider using BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Desi. That's betterhelp.com/Desi. Clicking that link not only supports this channel, but gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and see if it's right for you. Thank you again so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. April, this is the easiest, this without a doubt. Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I devoured this. I had seen people saying that this one was as good or better than Fourth Wing, and then knowing that it was also like You've Got Mail, but with a magical typewriter and they're exchanging letters. The romance in this book is superior to any other romance I've read this year. Don't even know what else to say. I have no words. I'm speechless when it comes to this book.
So my favorite book for April was Throne of Glass. We have 2 editions here. We're big Sarah J. Maas fans, if you can't tell. I'd heard a lot about Throne of Glass. I finally read it this year, and it was pretty good. It was better than I expected it to be. I recently got into Sarah J. Maas this year.
And you also read ACOTAR.
Yeah, and I read ACOTAR, and I even read Crescent City.
You just went
Yep.
Sarah J. Maas.
I just kind of went ham on Sarah J. Maas. I liked this book a lot. I liked maybe because I like high fantasy and I also like a little bit of action, and this one definitely had the action. Honestly, compared to ACOTAR, I liked Throne of Glass more because I feel like there was less spice, less romance, which I'm not super into. Like, I'll read books with it, but it's not why I read the book.
So you liked the focus more on like the fast-paced.
Yeah, I like the focus more on the fast-paced action and the world building. It wasn't Brandon Sanderson. No.
That's like your ranking system. Is it Brandon Sanderson good?
That has to be 5-star. Is it Brandon Sanderson? No? Okay. 4.5. For
May, I got really into romance. I love the start of the summer because I go crazy for romance. And so my book for May has to go to When in Rome, because this felt like an Emily Henry book with the banter and the dialogue, but it was just so wholesome and sweet. This is like apple pie. This is like streusel. This is like a home-baked banana bread or like a muffin, like that. And I guess I'm thinking of foods because baking is a big part of this book. You can see on the cover, but this was just so incredibly sweet. I don't think I've ever related to characters in a romance book the way I related to and loved these characters. I would die for them. You don't even feel like you're reading a book. You feel like you're truly experiencing a love story in real life. Also, When in Rome is a play on words because our main character, Amelia, loves Audrey Hepburn, and her idea of a Saturday night or a weekend is staying in and watching Audrey Hepburn movies, ordering pizza, getting wrapped up in a blanket, and I mean, it's just another reason I related to it so much. This was such an easy 5-star read for me. No competition this month.
My 5-star read for the month of April was...
Wait, April?
April,
No,
May?
May.
Oh, my bad. My 5-star read for the month of May was The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, a completely opposite book from the one you just talked about.
Yeah.
You're like, it was a lovely romance. This was not a lovely romance. This is a like darkish fantasy revenge story, and it's so good. You're rooting for the main character so hard the entire time, and it's really satisfying. If you like magic, dragons, and fantasy, this book is for you. I don't know if me describing the book really gives it justice, but it is really good. You should definitely read it. I highly recommend it. 5-star.
June was an
Same
amazing
for both of
month.
us.
It was the same for both of us. It was dun, da, 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 angels singing Fourth Wing. We both loved this book so much. You read it first, and then I read it, and I could not put it down. In my opinion, absolutely deserving of the hype. Like, is it the most perfect book? No. Is it the most perfectly written? Like, maybe not. But is it the type of book that transports you, where you live in it and you just have a good time with it? And there are so many dragons. And okay, wait, I just need to say something about the dragons. There are a lot of books that have dragons on the cover or say they're about dragons, but it feels like the dragons are maybe like secondary characters, or there's not a lot of time really spent on the dragons. But this book, the dragons are like the main characters. It's all about dragons. I wish I could experience reading it again for my first time. If you haven't read it yet and it's on your TBR, just pick it up. And also the audiobook is really good. I really enjoyed the audiobook.
I agree, Fourth Wing was really good. I gave it more of a 4.3. I did have a couple little instances where I felt like I was taken out of the book, but overall, it was really good. I enjoyed reading it a ton, which is why it was my favorite book for the month of April.
Wait, May? June? June.
June? June?
June.
Oh. Which,
You keep referring to April.
oh my gosh.
July. My book for July, it is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. I don't have it with me right now because it's at my mom's house and she's sending it back to me, but this book is like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but for book lovers. So instead of candy, it's books, and instead of a candy maker, it's an author. It's also set on Clock Island, which is this island off of Maine. It's beautiful, and it is the type of book that touches you in a way that you don't even realize books can touch you that deep. Like, you came into my room at the end and I was just sobbing, but not because it was sad, because it was over. And the experience, when that happens with a book, like, that just does not happen often when you're crying so much that it's over. I'm so grateful that I got to have that experience with a book. Like, it was everything. It was everything to me that month. And I don't think I read another book after it for a couple weeks because I just could not move on.
Dang. If you can't tell already, I am a fantasy book junkie, so my book for July was The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. You're much better at talking about books than I am.
Nope, you just gotta talk about your
Okay,
feelings.
it definitely starts as a boy going on an epic adventure type fantasy book, and then as you get really into it, you just get to know the characters really well. I like getting in the heads of the characters more and feeling like I really get to know the characters that I'm reading about, as if they're almost like my friends.
So you went on an epic adventure with your friends.
Yeah, so I went on an epic adventure with my friends. This book has magic, a magic academy, a little bit of mystery, some dark big bad enemy that needs to be defeated, dark evil creatures that want to eat you, and just basically everything you could ever hope for in a fantasy book. I gave this one 5 stars.
August. August was not the best reading month for me. Most of my books were 3.5 stars, but then I read Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. This was a 4.5 star read for me, and this one was perfect because in August I'm really craving like fall books, but it is still summer, and this one has witches and like folklore, but it also has the ocean as a huge part of the story and an island, which felt perfect as a transitional book from summer to fall. I'm in love with Tana and Wolf. They were the cutest couple, and Tana's relationship with the ocean and how that affects her magic. Oh, it was beautiful. I really, really liked this one.
My top book for August was The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Are you noticing a pattern? These are all fantasy books. It has Vikings, a lot of Norse mythology mixed with fantasy. Why was it good, Jared? Well, because it just was. I feel like it was written well. It just got me intrigued right from the beginning. And then it starts to branch off into a couple or a few different character stories, but each one is intriguing. I couldn't really put it down. It was really good.
That's good. September, the start of fall reading. This book does not have the best reviews on Goodreads or Amazon. Maybe it was written for me, I don't know, but that is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. There are these noblemen and they hire what they call blood maids, essentially servants who come into their household and their only job is to give them blood to help them remain youthful and healthy, but essentially they're vampires who are trying to live forever. It's gothic, it's twisty. And at the end, like I was literally almost like pulling my hair out. I needed to know that she was gonna be okay. It was just the type of book, again, like you said, I just couldn't put it down. I was thinking about it all the time, and I finished this while I was going on a drive. We live here in New England, and I was driving past like graveyard after graveyard, and it was a gloomy, like foggy day, and it was just the perfect ending with this, but like it was just, everything was perfect. I mean, I know that now I'm just rating the setting instead of the movie. It was just the whole experience. Oh, it was so good.
Good all around.
Such a fangirl for this book.
My September book might actually be my favorite book of the year. It's called Ascendant by Michael R. Miller. Something about this book really drew me in. Just think, poor cook's son teams up with a blind dragon to fight giant gross bugs and zombies with their moon magic and the power of good food.
That sounds amazing.
I love like the relationship with the boy and his dragon. It's like everything I dreamed I could do as a kid growing up. Like, what if I found a dragon egg, raised my own dragon, and then we had superpowers and we saved the world? Well, if that's your kind of book, then you will absolutely love this book.
October. October is impossible to choose. I have two and I cannot choose. They are tied. Starling House by Alex E. Harrow and Slewfoot by Brahm. These both changed me as a person. I will forever be impacted by these books. Starling House was like a beautiful love letter. It touched me in so many ways I didn't expect it to. I was annotating, I was highlighting, I was taking pictures of pages because the writing was so beautiful and detailed and tragic. This was a ride. I have never read and probably will never read anything like this again. I think like 1700s or like around like the Salem witch trials. I think this was actually after the witch trials. It's set in Connecticut. There's a woman who is wrongly accused, of course, of being a witch. The way she gets her revenge and that part of the story at the end, I was listening to Taylor Swift Reputation. Like I was going with her on this journey for revenge. And it was phenomenal. If you like movies like The Witch with Anya Taylor-Joy, that's really similar to the vibes in this book. This is definitely a horror book, but surprisingly, like I was okay with it, and I'm usually not. So that's saying something. I don't know, this book was written for me. These were both perfect. They were both 6-star reads for me.
My October book is The Eye of the World. This is the first book in the Wheel of Time series, which is a pretty long series.
What book are you on now?
I think I'm on book 7 or 8. Yeah.
And you just started this in October and it's only November now.
Yep, I've been binging
something.
them. Yeah. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings in the sense that there's an epic adventure. They leave their small town and their comfortable life with a advisor or a wise person. It definitely checks all the boxes for fantasy readers. I've heard that the show isn't very faithful to the source material, so I don't know if I want to watch it. I might go watch it anyway, but the books are really good. If any of you guys have seen it, let us know in the comments, like, should I go watch it? Is it worth it?
We're on our last one. November. Not surprising to anybody, my favorite book for November is Snowed In by Catherine Walsh. It gets extra points because it is set in Ireland during Christmas time, and as the title states, they do indeed get snowed in at a cabin in the mountains surrounded by woods. We've got the fake dating trope, and
Well, they have to snuggle to keep warm.
they do, and it's
if
so
the fire's
good.
not lighting and the heater's out.
I think you would love this book if you're looking for a cozy romance to snuggle up with this Christmas. I really want to reread it. It was so good.
I actually read this one earlier in the year, but I forgot which months I read which books. So for November, I chose Tess of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Imagine that the entire writing style of the book is like this. In the middle of the ocean, there was a girl who lived upon a rock. This was not an ocean like the one you have imagined, nor was the rock like the one you have imagined. The girl, however, might be as you imagined, assuming you imagined her as thoughtful, soft-spoken, and overly fond of collecting cups.
I love it.
It's just like a fun read. It's really fun.
I think he actually said that it was written for his wife as a book for her, but then she liked it so much she said he should publish it or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was written for his wife as like a fairy tale.
And it fits into his like Cosmere, his universe of books that he's written. I feel like this book is easier to digest than Brandon Sanderson's other more complicated novels. But if you are a Cosmere fan, you'll love all of the little Easter eggs that he puts in here. Read it. Read it right now.
That's a bit aggressive.
Just read it.
Oh my god.
No, don't hurt the book. I mean.
Oh. December is just starting, so we don't have books for December yet, but mine is probably gonna be a Christmas book, and I don't know about you, but we wanted to get this video up before the busyness of the holidays. As you can see, we have quite different reading tastes, but also similar, like we both enjoy fantasy, and you even read fantasy romance. If you have any recommendations for us, please let us know in the comments. Jared will be reading the comments as well. We had a good reading year.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Now I just gotta read Brandon Sanderson next year.
Yeah, you do. Mistborn? Mistborn?
Maybe Mistborn. The sequel to Divine Rivals comes out the day after Christmas, and I'm so excited. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you so much to my patrons who have been so supportive, especially during this time when I have been sick and not able to post as much content. We are wishing you a happy December. We'll see you very soon in another Christmas video. Until then, stay cozy and take care of yourselves. Bye, friends.
Bye, friends.
Oh.